when you start talking about technology and healthcare, I mean, for me, they need to be interwoven together because we are at that stage in this day and age where you have to leverage technology in order to optimize your day-to-day operations, but also never forget, providing the utmost care and with the best outcomes to your patients. So I do feel like, the introduction of AI-powered scribing for documentation in your day-to-day interaction with the patient is a must for almost everybody these days.
Hello, and welcome back to the Athelis Taking Back Healthcare podcast. Today we are joined by Dr. Yousef Shishani. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. It would be great if you could just kind of give us a background on kind of like your journey to how you came to be at the Cleveland Orthopedic and Spine Institute.
Absolutely. Thank you for hosting me here. I appreciate the opportunity. My story started about 20 years ago, to be honest. Graduated from medical school in Jordan, the country, and I decided I wanted to become an orthopedic surgeon. I sent out a bunch of emails to a lot of different locations in the US, and Dr. Ruben Gubizi was one of the guys who responded to me, and then my journey started that way. By pure luck, maybe, but then came to Cleveland in summer 2007, delved into a lot of research with Dr. Gubizi. He was fresh out of his fellowship, and that's how I ended up here.
Right. And so you are an MD, but you kind of focus in research. What kind of made you make that decision specifically?
Exactly. So I think my exposure to research in the med school was very limited. And then coming in the United States and seeing the amount and the impact that the data has on the patient care kind of influenced me to do more. And I spent a lot of time working with Dr. Gubizi on so many different ideas, on so many different aspects of what that data that is actually being generated by the patients themselves influence the provider or the surgeon to change certain aspects of the care to better tailor to the patient's needs. So I got that weird relationship with the impact of the data on the timeline on how it affects the patient care.
Right. Yeah. Can you give an example of that?
Absolutely. So I remember vividly one study that we did, which is the impact of tranexamic acid on the bleeding during shoulder surgery. I spent a lot of weekends working close by with patients on the bedside to see the amount of, we calculate how much bleeding happens after surgery in the vacuum container. But with the effect of that medicine, the tranexamic acid, I developed that relationship with these patients to see how that impacts their overall stay, overall experience. And, with a lot of work, a lot of dedication, we actually collected the data, submitted the data, and we actually won the NEAR Award in 2015 for that. So that influenced our decision to the study, the data that is coming out, and how that is now a standard for us to use in shoulder surgeries with our patients. So it helps us understand from a patient perspective how we can change our protocols in order to ultimately make it a better, safer, quicker recovery for the patients themselves.
Right. So, I mean, you've been partnered with Dr. Ruben Gubizi for, 20 years now?
20-some years,
So do you feel that what makes Cleveland Orthopedic and Spine unique is how you're leveraging this data for patient care?
Absolutely. So the unique thing, I look at Dr. Gubizi as a mentor, as a friend, of course. As a colleague. What's unique about the Cleveland Orthopedic and Spine is it's a physician-led group. It's a physician-led practice. Top-notch colleagues, top-notch surgeons, covering almost everything in orthopedics: spine, hip, knee, shoulder, and spine. It's really a small group, but within a bigger landscape of orthopedic surgeons in Cleveland. So we are attracting through what we believe is a direct and personalized care to the patients in the surrounding hospital systems in a bigger city like Cleveland. So I think what is unique about that is what we have learned throughout these years, not just Dr. Gubizi, but the other surgeons as well, from their expertise, to bring into that specialized, direct relationship with our patients. So I think it's a unique practice. It's a unique commitment from us to provide the best care to our patients.
Definitely. So in terms of providing that best care to your patients, are there any standout moments that kind of made you remember this is exactly why we do it?
Oh, I mean, to be honest, there's a lot. There's a lot of memories that would come, but I will always, never forget certain aspects when you see somebody who fell and broke their arm, and then you provide them with the options or the treatment modalities, and then they undergo the surgery, and then they regain, the function,
Mm-hmm.
the pain is relieved, and then they are back to their normal life. Like, you see that quite often in orthopedics, where you relieve the pain, resume the normal function, and people are always thankful. That it leaves an everlasting impact on you as a care provider.
Definitely. What do you feel like are kind of low-hanging fruit that most other practices aren't leveraging with like technology and data the way that you folks are?
I mean, to be honest with you, when you start talking about technology and healthcare, I mean, for me, they need to be interwoven together.
Yeah.
Because we are at that stage in this day and age where you have to leverage technology in order to optimize your day-to-day operations, but also never forget, providing the utmost care and with the best outcomes to your patients. So I do feel like, the introduction of AI-powered scribing for documentation in your day-to-day interaction with the patient is a must for almost everybody these days. That saves a lot of time. It increases your efficiency. It increases your productivity, and it helps your clinical crew focus more on providing that care. Because sometimes throughout the history, you're always thinking about that episode of documentation that you're like dreading, because at the end of the day, you have to spend that time dictating through a phone, writing a note, all that stuff. So introducing AI scribe tools within medical practice, I think it's a must, and it should be a standard of care these days, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. And we've seen here at Commure that it pretty much kind of like what you're saying, you get to focus back into the patient care.
Absolutely.
You don't have to worry about burnout. There's no more dread. And that time that you would otherwise be spending on documentation, you can put back into potentially even slightly longer encounters to really focus on the
Absolutely,
patient.
absolutely. You free your mind from thinking about that extra step to thinking more about the diagnosis. What options do I have as a provider to give to my patient, and then leave like the work of like your day-to-day documentation to the system. But again, not to mention that you have to have that human touch to validate what's coming from the AI powered system. Because for me, a lot of my colleagues would hear about AI. It's not me fully trusting what the system is doing, but trusting it to empower me on top of a human validation point in the process. So that's key to also emphasize.
Yeah, what we found is that it makes the most sense in workflows and end result quality, where that AI acts as a co-pilot
Absolutely.
alongside you, as opposed to just a complete autopilot.
100%.
Because otherwise, you can't have AI just signing off on your notes for you.
100%.
Yeah.
And we've seen that in real time, to be honest. In our practice, we've deployed an AI scribe, and talking to the team, we're seeing anywhere between 2 to 3 hours of time saving just by relying on AI powered documentation. It's phenomenal.
Right.
It's truly impacting how we are changing day-to-day interactions with our patients.
Interesting. Can you speak more to what those other providers at your practice are saying, in addition to their time savings, how they are able to contribute that to patient care?
Absolutely. So with the documentation being taken care of with the help of AI, we are spending a little bit more time with the patients.
Mm-hmm.
We are seeing more patients, which has another impact on the
Right.
revenue for the clinic. Spending more time and getting more one-on-one time with the patient helps us better deal with that problem, with that scenario,
Mm-hmm.
and helps the provider themselves be more productive. Not thinking too much about hey, I got this number of patients on my schedule. I have to think about the extra time that needs for the documentation. You just see one patient, take your full time. You know your note is going to be ready by the time you actually leave the office, and then go to the next one without worrying about, oh, I missed this, I missed that, because everything is documented. So you can go back to the note, you can supplement the note, you can actually share immediately with, if you want a letter for the patient. All the different scenarios that we always think about that we have to rely on somebody in the back office, it's right there, a click away from whatever interface that you're using.
Definitely. So what's interesting to me about you is that you're kind of an expert, I would say, on both fronts of technology within healthcare, from the operations perspective, but then also in actual, bleeding edge new procedures. What is it like going from taking, something that you were researching to like actually implementing it in a clinical setting?
Yeah, I can speak a little bit about my exposure to all of the technology when I spent a little bit of time, 3-4 years at Genie Health, where it was purely an innovation between Dr. Gubisi, Dr. Ruben Gubisi, and Dr. Larry Higgins. Seeing the impact of COVID on the human touch, on the human relationship, patients not being able to come to physical therapy, not being able to do their rehab, we started looking at remote physical therapy, the impact of computer vision, machine learning, the human motion. How can we use a cell phone, regular built-in camera in their phone to actually measure their range of motion, give them feedback, learning their recovery trends, all that information, from working with software developers, software engineers, to physical therapists, combining all of the different aspects into a user-friendly front-facing camera application that the patient can put on their desk, work their range of motion, sending us that information, and then we can work with the patient. For me, that experience truly shaped how I look at technology in the MSK field, in the musculoskeletal health in general, and the endless opportunities that might be able to be applied in different aspects, whether it's a hip, whether it's a knee, whether it's a back, but eventually combining the power of like software development with clinical knowledge and combining something in that aspect. When it comes to orthopedic surgery, I think I would love to focus more on efficiencies in the office now, just like we talked about describing, and also what happens after the patient leaves,
right.
the stuff that impacts your practice, revenue cycles, denials, all of that stuff that would help a practice as a whole to better continue with their standard of care. Because at the end of the day, I want to focus on getting the patient better, but at the end of the day, I want to make sure that I am able to, sustain the staff. I want to make sure that I'm able to keep up with the same level, if not go to a higher level, by making sure that all of the repetitive steps that happens from a workflow is taken care of. That's I think is the immediate effect that I would love to see on orthopedic practices.
Yeah, definitely. We see a lot of, what's great about AI and technology and automation is that so much of the repetitive manual work is kind of, automated away.
Absolutely.
You can focus on higher quality
Absolutely.
tasks and work. What are some of the kind of burdens on your staff right now that you want to automate away?
Oh, I don't know where to start, but to be honest, it's a lot. It's a lot. Being in a practice that is very high load, we see a lot of patients.
Right.
In as I said, in the different aspects of hip, knee, and shoulder, you start running into those trends of pre-auth, denials, revenue cycle. There's the human touch, which it's a good thing, but given the amount of data that is being generated in our practice, that takes a little bit of more time for a human to analyze, to figure out the trends, to work out these claims. In applying algorithms through AI that would help me as a provider better understand outcomes, trends, that speeds up the process for me to better understand that. So denials, for example, pre-auth. When it comes, we're dealing with insurance companies all the time. If they're applying these kind of technologies, I would love to be also applying that same approach to keep up with the pace. Because at the end of the day, it's a race. I want to make sure that I'm providing the best care that I am capable of, but at the same time keeping up with all of like the bureaucracy and the ever-changing rules and regulations by trusting a system, by trusting an algorithm, but at the same time keeping up with the demand. It's a game, it's a race that I want to deploy and utilize technology as much as we can, to be honest.
Yeah, totally. It's definitely like David and Goliath thing, where
100%.
the payers are Goliath, but this new AI and tech and automation is that sling and stone to kind of make sure that we can take them down.
Absolutely. And to be honest, there's no denial that the human touch is there to look at certain outliers, to look at certain aspects of what am I missing in the bigger picture. I don't want my crew to be digging into that repetitive same concept. I want to use the human brain to look at certain outliers, to look at certain, specifics. But the day in and day out, if it's the case in an orthopedic surgeon, practice, if it's internal medicine, whatever, there are certain aspects of the practice that are rinse and repeat that you would definitely have a system capable of integrating into your EMR to figure those claims out, the pre-auth or the denials easily. And then leave the extra work to a certain expert to look at these. That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
It's a fine balance between the impact of technology and the human touch.
Yeah, exactly. Do you find it difficult to pinpoint the causes or the root causes of denials?
It's all over the place, to be honest. It's gonna vary, but I think at the end of the day, if you stratify the data, if you start looking at the different buckets of these denials, then you can start working through these out. But if you come and you want to put your finger on the pulse, I think it's going to be a little bit tricky to say, well, I see this because of that. It's all over the place. I think it starts with stratifying where these denials are, figuring out each bucket by itself, and then start working them out.
Yeah, definitely. And that's definitely what our, revenue cycle management product here does. And I think what's, really beneficial about that is that when we're trying to get, buy-in from certain practices, we're effectively selling outcomes to them, right? And that kind of speaks for itself. Going back to some of the kind of innovative, procedures that you've kind of developed, what is it like to get buy-in from other, providers or admin on those like bleeding edge?
Great question. I think the impact is always in the outcomes. Whenever you see positive outcomes, it's always gonna attract that buy-in. You can talk about your experience for as much as you want, but without tangible, outcomes, it's just going to be an opinion. What I like always is the power of data. You can show, here is a before and after from whatever you've developed, whether it's a procedure, whether it's an algorithm, and here's what the outcome is.
Yeah.
I always emphasize that at the end of the day, my goal as a provider is to treat a patient and to treat them at the best and highest degree of care. But at the same time, I want to ensure that in the process, me as a business in this in this field, that my work is also in place. Mm-hmm. And that's where I emphasize the technology, AI powered algorithms, AI powered whatever you want to call it, protocols to help me sustain that level of care. Because at the end of the day, if I cannot show you as a colleague, as an administrative person, the effect of that data or the actionable outcome, it's just going to be an opinion, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. Going one step higher, what does it look like to kind of implement a net new procedure that you've developed on like a regulatory scale? Because then you're bringing in things like potentially government or policy or payers into the equation there as well, right?
Well, it can go either way, to be honest. It's as you know, with all the rules and regulations, you have to follow what the protocol is. You have to go by the book. As long as you are doing things that are out there outlined to you as a provider, I don't think there's a problem. Starting new things from scratch, whether it's a procedure, whether it's an implant, whether it's always you have to stick by the rules and regulations,
Right.
Dealing with the FDA, dealing with the CMS, guidance, you have to stay there. But I'm always on that forefront of let's see what's new. Let's see what is available to us that would impact our care pathway, because ultimately I put the patient safety first, and then everything else comes second place. So if it's something that is going to affect how I treat my patients safely, efficiently, and the revenue is going to be there, then I'm always a proponent of that pathway. But guidelines, you have to stick with them. You have to follow all the recommendations.
Definitely. So on the topic of guidelines, how do guidelines and policy like, CMS rules or anything like that determine what you can or can't do for like what you're interested in today?
To be honest, that's not my expertise,
Okay.
But I do feel that CMS is always giving you the chance to use this kind of a technology. AI by itself in healthcare is relatively new. Mm-hmm. So I know there's a lot of ever-changing approaches and ever-changing protocols to how you can, as a clinician, depend on AI. But I think Medicare, CMS, the FDA, they definitely are proponents of applying AI in our healthcare, because at the end of the day, it's going to help them as well.
Right. Where do you want to see AI be able to take ortho in the future?
I have big aspirations for that, to be honest. I mean, as I said, I'd like to, divide how AI in ortho specifically works on two levels. There's the clinical aspect of things, and then there's the higher level of innovations of within, orthopedic surgery itself. In the clinical workflows, I would emphasize the impact of AI scribing on the day-to-day. That is huge. If you ask any provider, that's the amount of time that they might save in their day-to-day from documentation. The impact, again, take it one step also in that field, the impact on the revenue cycle. Even though it's not affecting purely the physician or the provider, but it's affecting their practice, it's affecting the hospital system they're in, that's eventually, they're going to feel it. Right. Whenever there's a positive impact, everybody is going to feel it in the clinical team.
Right, and the pain moves up.
100%. Ultimately, I want my patient feeling better. So even the patient is going to feel the AI aspect of things and the effect of it when their wait time decreases in the wait room, right. When the communication becomes more streamlined. Me as a provider, I would love to know more about, trends in machine learning about what the patient is, unique risk that the patient presents with. All that stuff comes from crunching tremendous amount of data. Without the help of AI and algorithms, that's going to be tough. Switching over to the pure clinical orthopedic experience, you're talking about robotics. That by itself is huge. Using your regular phone to point it at an arm or a leg and to tell you more about range of motion, all that stuff within
from the patient perspective.
Exactly. To help you as a provider, just by using patient or physician, to be honest, using all of these computer vision algorithms out there to help you, because it's in ortho, you're interested in function. Function is how high can you raise your arm, how far can you bend, all that stuff. If I can use this technology from computer vision to help me understand that, that's huge. So it's truly sky's the limit when it comes to AI in orthopedics, but I would love to focus more on getting a gold standard first to improve the efficiency in the workflows, so that everybody who is involved in the care of the patients feel that impact, feel that time saving, and make them more energetic about coming in the next day to see and care for the patients.
Definitely, and it pretty much expands the radius of patient care in healthcare. Because right now, potentially, they leave your clinic doors closed and then they're kind of in the dark. But if they're able to use their phone at home to kind of continue on that very personalized patient care at home, it kind of raises the bar of what they're able to do.
100%. And I'm always a big proponent of data capture. Especially in a practice like us, high load, very busy, you want to make sure that you embed the data collection versus adding an extra step.
Right.
Me as a patient, not as a provider, I might tend to not do the extra step in my care. But if I'm able to provided as part of my intake, as part of, as you said, you leave the practice and you get this, link where you're just answering certain questions that you need to answer along with certain things, patient-reported outcomes, that helps me as a provider, as a practice, to collect that data and better tailor, the care, that personal care that I want for every single patient that I treat.
Definitely. So what are some exciting innovations in like patient care that you're excited about right now?
There's a lot, to be honest. What I think about these days is the personal touch with our patients.
Yeah.
Using, everybody. If you talk to, anybody and you mention the word computer bot or robot, they freak out. But if I'm able to use, call agents that are, software programs developed specifically for, my practice, that would enable me to answer my patients specifically to their needs, schedule them on time, give them the information, it would streamline my practice in that aspect. The goal is treating the patient. The goal is having the patient live through this personalized care event. Using AI technology would definitely help that. AI agents answering phone calls, providing enough information that the patient is happy with, for them like to go into the next appointment to answer certain questions, would definitely mean a lot to me as a provider, because the patient, they need a human touch at some point, which is a must. It's not gonna ever go away, in my opinion. But what is more important to me is to automate a lot of what historically has been a human touch that takes time. Calling, responding, sending out a text message, all that stuff. If I automate a lot of that in any practice, not just an orthopedic practice, that's going to streamline a lot between, as experience for the patient and for me as a provider, to see more fluidity in my day-to-day schedule.
Right. And so it sounds like what you're saying is, for the kind of mundane tasks, operate those or automate those way, but then still when it comes to the patient care experience, anything that the patient is interacting with, you want to be able to customize what that experience looks like to make sure that you're nailing their experience to a T.
Absolutely. Every patient is different. Even a patient who is experiencing knee pain, everybody presents in a different fashion. I want to be able to custom and personalize that care for that patient. So the more I know about the patient, the more data I collected previously from the patient before my interaction would help me better custom create a care pathway, whether I need to include prehab, whether I need to include certain modifications in the procedure to that patient. So the more I get from the patient themselves, the better it's going to be on the outcome, because at the end of the day, I don't treat the knee, I treat the patient with that knee pain.
Right. I hope there's some other prospective, health tech people watching, or any research students, because I feel like you're giving a lot of good ideas about potential opportunities for research or like building new things. So going back to what you said earlier, there's so many things you can talk about in terms of innovations. If we fast forward 20, 25 years, what are some bold predictions you have about where healthcare is headed?
Very, very interesting question, to be honest. I think, first of all, we need to stabilize. It's very fast pace. There's a lot changing. It's going to keep changing. I think the core of our healthcare needs to focus on the safety and the efficiency at which we are providing care to our patients. Once things stabilize, and once we know that this is the baseline, innovation is only going to empower the physician, the clinician, whoever in the field, whether you're like in a PT setup, whether you're like a surgeon, internal medicine, it's going to empower you to do whatever is available at your fingertips to expedite the care. Everybody's talking about concierge pain, personalized care pathways. I think all of that is doable, but at the expense of making sure that the technology is up to par to help you provide that care to the patient. Otherwise, it's just going to be providers or colleagues saying, you know what, I'm not trusting that fast-paced technology. Mm-hmm. I look at it with our day-to-day digital gadgets. Now I look at my kids, sometimes they just swipe on the TV themselves because at the end of the day, it's that fast pace. It's everything is out there at your fingertips.
Yeah.
It's how you mold that in order to help you in your practice in any specialty to better provide better care to your patients. So in 20, 25 years, I'm thinking that, the remote patient care is just going to be on the rise. It's very feasible now to jump on a call and see your patients, do a lot of measurements using all of these fancy gadgets out there that would enable the patient to do certain things, and then for me as a provider to get that. But in healthcare, there's always the gold standard, hands-on physician-patient relationship is crucial. There's no way that I can see that go anytime soon. But it's really important to, as you said, extend the care outside the brick and mortar. COVID hit us, and we had to adapt. There has been a lot of change in the way that we conduct regular care to our patients. So I do feel like remote care, giving more autonomy to the patient to do certain things that they were not allowed to do back in the days, from going to a lab or sending them kits that allows them to do these tests, and all of that information gets relayed over. I think that's where things are gonna have an impact on healthcare.
Interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting. And kind of going back to some of these policy changes or how things are currently being done, if there was one thing you could change about, like U.S. outpatient care right now, and it would stick, what would you change?
I don't know about change, to be honest, about outpatient care.
So you're happy with how things are?
I mean, outpatient care is outpatient care, to be honest. I think what needs to change is not policies, but it's how we conduct, outpatient care. Waiting times, patient communication, having the patient understand, that we are using a lot of technology within the office to make, you're scheduled to see your provider at 9 and you're scheduled for half an hour. People think that 9 o'clock it needs to happen on the dot. They don't understand sometimes that the patient before might have a little bit of a more complicated case. I need to spend a little bit more time doing certain investigations. So gathering all that information before the patient comes in to see the provider outpatient in an outpatient setup is going to be huge to empower me to stick to my timeline in order to answer the question, examine, give my recommendation, document, so that the patient whole experience is streamlined, and for them to say, what, I'm going to recommend this place to my family, to my friend, all that stuff. That's the kind of stuff that I'd rather focus on. I don't know about policies or regulations that might change how we see outpatient patients. I don't think that is the goal. I think it's just making sure that the experience is optimized, streamlined, with me on the receiving end as a patient, getting my stuff done and getting the answers that I'm looking for.
Definitely. Going back to remote patient monitoring, what are things that are really exciting you right now?
I mean, to be honest, I've been a little bit distant from that, but okay. I do feel that there's a lot happening in that space. A lot of the technology development that happened in that space is allowing you as a patient to be in contact with your provider from literally anywhere in the world. Digital proximity is a door that I don't think ever existed in the healthcare setup. Now we are seeing telehealth visits. Now we are seeing, hey, I want to be able to talk to my therapist on that spot, and not just talk to them, see how you're doing, measure, get the feedback, showing you, progress on how you're doing. I think that relationship outside of a brick and mortar setup is huge in remote patient monitoring. And the best thing about it, I'm not giving you extra hardware. It's literally your phone. Most of the work that I've done literally involved the patient phone, front-facing camera, rear-facing camera, a simple stand, or you just put your phone out there, and you can get the information that you want to get out of what you're trying like to assess or deal with. So remote patient monitoring opens a huge aspect of extending care outside of your regular setup that we traditionally been doing.
Right, right. And when it comes to the type of work and kind of innovative things that you folks are doing at Cleveland Orthopedic and Spine, what are some things that you wish or want to see other practices adopt?
I think the goal that we strive to attain at Cleveland Orthopedic and Spine is the utmost care provided to our patients in a private setup, in a private practice setup, in a city like Cleveland. We're surrounded by these big hospital systems. The goal is, using technology, as I said, to streamline the first contact point between the patient and the practice, from, appointments, information that the patient needs, same day, imaging, all that stuff gets the patient in and out quickly without the need to wait, talk to somebody. That for me, streamlining that process, which is really, really impactful on the next step, which the patient comes in, he gets seen or she gets seen by the provider, they needed surgery. That first interaction, if they can pick up a phone and an AI agent knows exactly that it's trained for that specific shoulder problem, gets them in, puts them on the calendar, boom, they're done. The whole experience gets optimized. We are continuously changing, we're continuously evolving, and I'm here to learn more about what you guys have to offer in order to impact that experience. Because at the end of the day, I wouldn't be able to do my job without relying on a lot of staff members in the back office, in the office itself, and without having the patient commitment in order to seek help or care at my facility. So for me, the impact is always, with the technology, is on that front aspect of the patient scheduling. I think, and that is something that I would love for other practices to invest time and resources in.
Right, because ultimately that kind of front of office workflow will impact the type of care that they
Absolutely.
get. And Absolutely. How they feel about even coming back for care later.
100%. I mean, if you talk to any regular patient, it's like, well, it took me a week to get hold of somebody. It took a week for somebody to call me back, versus like I went on their website, I clicked a couple of things, I was on the schedule the next day. I mean, it carries a whole different message. And you've seen patients. You probably talked to a lot of people where, hey, it only took a text message for me to get on the calendar, versus, well, I'm not going to be seen until a month. That carries a whole different aspect of the experience that you as a patient have, and the trust that you can develop with your provider. I think that's huge.
Definitely. And just as a final question, for those who are interested in kind of following in your footsteps, what's some advice that you have?
Well, I always say focus on your patient. The goal is to provide the highest care. The outcome from your treatment is key. Do not shy away and do not hesitate to explore how you can empower yourself first, the team members, the back office staff, the leadership, from looking on what's out there in regards to the two letters AI or technology. To be honest, as we talked at the beginning, you don't want to burden yourself with your day-to-day. You actually want to use whatever tool is out there to make it streamlined, to make it less of a struggle, and for you to focus on what you do best, is listening to the patients and treating their problems. So it's that balance between go out. There's no shortage of information. I'm personally here to know more about what you guys have to offer, to empower me as a clinician, to empower my team members to do their job. It's not just the clinicians, but also the office, the revenue cycle, all that stuff. There's a lot of automation that can happen to streamline the workflow and make them more efficient. That would be my advice.
Amazing. Well, Dr. Shishani, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you, sir. I
Pleasure chatting.
appreciate it. Thank you.